A documented $47,000 bill from a single Claude Code session is a real thing that happened, and Cursor AI would have cost you $40 per user that same month. That gap is not a rounding error. Both tools are getting pushed hard as the go-to AI coding setup for 2026. So I went through pricing pages, official docs, and community benchmarks to compare Cursor AI versus Claude Code across 5 categories, sourcing every number I could actually verify. One of these tools wins on almost every dimension, but there's a specific workflow where Claude Code is the only option. And if that's your situation, that 47K risk conversation changes completely. We'll get there in the pricing test. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. I pulled every pricing page, every doc, and every community report I could find on both Cursor AI and Claude Code, so this comparison is grounded in actual published data, not vibes. You've probably heard both tools are great for AI-assisted coding, but if you're a solo dev or running a team of even 5 people, picking the wrong one could cost you hundreds of dollars a month or lock you out of your IDE. That's the actual decision we're making here. Test 1 is code completion and context window. So, 272,000 tokens. That's the number on Cursor AI's side, and it matters because when your context runs out mid-refactor on a large file, the model starts losing track of what it already wrote, and your completions get worse fast. Cursor AI runs a 272K token context window versus Claude Code's 200K, which is 36% larger, and Cursor publishes a 28% acceptance rate improvement with 21% fewer suggestions on its new model. I couldn't find any comparable acceptance rate number from Claude Code at all. That said, community reports do say Claude Code understands project structure more deeply, so bear that in mind. The gap is real, but it's not as clean as the numbers suggest. Cursor's bigger context window doesn't automatically mean better understanding, and the community reported edge for Claude Code on deep repo comprehension is something you want to factor in if you're working on a large, complex codebase every day. Cursor AI takes test 1, the 272K context, and the measurable 28% acceptance improvement are both verified numbers, and Claude Code just doesn't publish anything comparable, so that puts Cursor AI up 1-0 on the scoreboard. If you're on a solo dev workflow, that acceptance rate gap alone is kind of a big deal. Test 2 is IDE integration and editor support. A solo dev who's been in JetBrains for 3 years needs to know whether switching tools means rebuilding their whole setup, because that migration cost is real. The time loss, the broken muscle memory, the missing extensions, it adds up fast. Alright, so what I found here is pretty interesting. Cursor AI is a full VS Code fork, which means you get every VS Code extension out of the box and zero migration pain if you're already there. Claude Code uses plugins that layer on top of existing IDEs, and it actually supports JetBrains, CLI, web, and mobile, which Cursor doesn't do at all, so the platform reach is genuinely wider for Claude Code. Cursor AI wins IDE integration overall because the native fork experience is just deeper and more consistent for the majority of developers already in VS Code. I was expecting the JetBrains support to push Claude Code closer, but for most people that advantage doesn't apply. Scoreboard moves to 2-0 Cursor AI. Test 3 is pricing, and this one has a concrete horror story attached. A documented $47,000 bill from Claude Code's subagent fanout is sitting in the community right now, and that's not a theoretical risk. That's what happens when API-based billing scales without a cap and you're not watching it. Both tools start at $20 a month for Pro, which sounds equal, but what surprised me is how fast Claude Code diverges from there. At scale, Claude Code averages $150 to $250 per dev per month, while Cursor's Teams plan sits at $40 per user per month, which is 3 to 6 times more expensive for Claude Code, and Cursor's credit model is way more predictable with no surprise billing. Cursor AI takes pricing, $40 a month per user versus a potential $250, and a documented 47K incident on the Claude Code side that's not even close, and that puts Cursor AI at 3-0. I was expecting the $20 Pro plans to keep this competitive, but the scale math just doesn't work in Claude Code's favor. 2 tests left, and the next one is where team workflows either fall apart or fly. Real-time collaboration is something Claude Code just might not have an answer for, and the last test on speed is where the day-to-day feel of these tools actually separates. Stick around. Test 4 is real-time collaboration. You've probably heard both tools are solid for team coding, but what happens when two devs need to work in the same session at the same time? One of these tools has shared cursors, comments, and version rollback. The other one's workaround is screen sharing, or tmux. What surprised me here is how complete the gap is. Cursor AI has native shared cursors, live annotations, and version control rollback built right in, while Claude Code has no multi-user session support at all, and from what I can tell, that's a known open issue in their community tracker, not something on a near-term roadmap. On the team plan side, Cursor charges $40 per user per month versus Claude Code's $100 per seat with a 5-seat minimum. Cursor AI wins collaboration, and it's not a close call. 9-0 on multi-user sessions is about as clear as it gets, and that moves the tally to 4-0 for Cursor AI. I genuinely didn't expect Claude Code to have zero real-time collaboration in 2026, but that's where it stands. Test 5 is latency and response speed. 2 times the speed of Sonnet 4.5, that's what Cursor AI's composer claims for code generation. And if you're doing iterative refactoring across a big file all day, a tool that slows down as context fills is going to grind your flow to a halt. So I looked at every speed metric both tools publish, and here's what we got. Cursor's composer runs at 2x, the speed of Sonnet 4.5, and handles over 400 million requests a day with no reported degradation. Claude Code's performance actually drops as the context window fills up, which means you need to actively manage it, and while Claude Code does have parallel subagent execution, which is powerful, that can multiply your costs by 10 to 500 times. Cursor AI takes speed too, the 2x generation rate and consistent performance at 400 million plus daily requests, versus Claude Code's context fill slowdown is a clear gap for day-to-day coding, so the final scoreboard is 5-0, Cursor AI. Claude Code's subagent parallelism is interesting, but the cost risk makes it hard to call a win. Cursor AI wins on context size at 272k tokens, a verified 28% acceptance rate improvement, a native VS Code fork with every extension intact, real-time collaboration with shared cursors, predictable pricing at $40 per user per month versus Claude Code's potential $250, and a composer model that runs at 2e, the speed of Sonnet 4.5. Claude Code wins on platform reach, supporting JetBrains, CLI, web, and mobile where Cursor just can't go, and community reports give it an edge on deep repo understanding for complex codebases. If you need parallel subagent execution for large-scale workflows, Claude Code is the only option. Just watch the cost. Alright, so here's the decision rule. If you're on VS Code and you want predictable costs, real-time collaboration, and faster completions, Cursor AI is the clear pick. $40 a month versus a potential $47,000 incident is not a hard call. If you're deep in JetBrains, or you need CLI native workflows with parallel agents, Claude Code is worth it, but set a spend alert before you touch subagents. I ran GitHub Copilot against Cursor AI next, and the context window gap flips in a way I didn't expect, especially on the team pricing side. That comparison is already on the channel if you want to see whether Copilot closes the distance, or if Cursor AI just runs away with it again.